Hello, my name is James Spiro and this is CTech's Out of the Bubble series. We're in Bnei Brak and I'm joined with Marcy Tatelbaum, the head of HR at Triple Whale, Aaron Fruchtman, the vice president at JBH Avratech, Moshe Friedman, the co-founder and CEO of CTech, and Gigi Levy-Weiss, the co-founder and general partner at NFX. Hi, folks. Moshe, I'd like to start with you, please, and I'd like you to tell us a bit about CTech and where we are today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the beautiful morning that you arranged for us. We are here in Bnei Brak. In the tower, we can see the beautiful view of Bnei Brak. If you try to imagine this scene a few years ago, it looks like a dream. That we will have towers and high-tech companies and accelerator for startups. It was a dream, but this dream came true. I remember about 10 years ago, I started my own startup company, and I met a few people from the high-tech industry, and they told me, we don't care about your startup. What's most important is to bring more and more Haredim into the high-tech industry. Israel high-tech industry is the jewel of the crown, but we have a problem that the Haredi population are not part of this movement, this ecosystem. Today, 12% of the population of Israel are Haredim. More importantly, 27% of the kids in first grade in Israel are Haredim. If we will manage to bring this talent, these people into the high-tech industry, it will be huge win-win for both sides. If we will fail, it will be a big problem. So I started CTech with the mission to bridge the gap between the Haredim and the tech industry and bring more and more Haredim to become entrepreneurs, to start companies, to become employees in the big companies. And we sit today in these beautiful offices where we do training and we do accelerator for startups. And actually we are bridging the gap between the Haredim and the tech industry. Baruch Hashem.
Okay, thank you, and thank you. And I want to learn more about it. So now what we can do is we can kind of hot potato it, and anyone that wants to speak can speak, and you can fight over the microphones all you wish. But what I'd like to do is talk about some of the tangible ways that this is done. I mean, there are some separations between the conventional Tel Aviv startup nation bubbles and the lifestyle that's being lived in Bnei Brak. So what's that like about outreach, and how do we get people in Bnei Brak aware and eager to do the things that are being done?
So I'll answer this. I'll just give a little bit of background of what we do. So our organization was founded about 8 years ago by Rabbi Label, who's a Rosh Kol, a well-known rabbi in the community. And he wanted to build, he saw there's a lot of what's called Avrechim, which is a man who studies Torah full-time. And a lot of Avrechim around age 28, 30, mainstream Haredi men, who might be looking to do something else, but it's not relevant for them to now go to university for 4 years. Remember, these guys have 5 kids, they have maybe a mortgage, they have rent, and it's not relevant for them they're not able to. So he built our program, JBH Avratech, formerly Avratech. The men learn Torah from 9 to 12. Which is like they used to learn Torah, so they're still learning Torah from 9 to 12. They're comfortable in that environment, and then they learn math, English, and computer programming. And then afterwards, we give them employment in Avratech or some of our other partner companies. And the goal of what Rabbi Label developed is that we should have a track for a avrech, for a mainstream Haredi man, not a man who's 20 years old, who can integrate into the high-tech community, into high-tech professions. So there are certainly issues that not every Haredi man knows what high-tech is. We get calls all the time, guys calling me, I want a job. He's calling an organization, he wants a job. He's looking to get into what's high-tech? What do you guys do? A computer? He doesn't know anything about it. But at the end of the day, he knows that after 5 years, he's going to be making a nice salary. so we'll come to do it. But so our organization creates an answer, a solution for a 30-year-old man or a 25-year-old man, a mainstream Haredi man who's looking to get into the high-tech profession. And we do see research was done by a few institutions to show that that it works. A vocational training coupled with practical experience. All of our graduates either get internships or join our partners' companies for a year or two, is successful in integrating a Haredi man with really limited secular education. Remember, these men come with no English or no math, into the high-tech sector. We have, graduates working at AT&T, Checkpoint, major companies, all sorts of major companies, startups, leading positions at leading startups, and Pagaya, and whatever I'm sure this is CTech. Everyone knows the startups over here, right? I don't have to worry about that. So that's what I would say. It's for certain. It's definitely there's a cultural difference. A Haredi man has different values, and thank God, Baruch Hashem, he doesn't have the same values as, not necessarily, but there are definitely a lot of shared values that are in the secular society with the Haredi society. And I think that we have to find those shared values and speak on those shared values in order to promote more men to working in the high-tech sector. And I think that's the key of our success is finding the shared values. And I think that's the key of any successful integration of Haredi men into the high-tech sector, shared values.
Okay, thank you. Marcy, you're holding the microphone, so I'm going to come to you next, I'm afraid.
So I'd love to add to that, besides for obviously the men in the Haredi world, the amazing presence of women in high tech from the Haredi population is amazing. There's so many programs there. There's so many talented women coming out of post-high school type of programs with amazing depth of knowledge and talent in programming, in data engineering, and all kinds of related fields in high tech. And they're amazing. And it's an honor to be able to work and start planting seeds of, slashing down bias, being able to accommodate different kind of people to work together, to build tech, to build companies together. And you'd be surprised that in Bnei Brak, everywhere where there's a ton of hidden talent, just amazing things going on with the men and the women, people learning on their own, on the side, programming, teaching themselves. There's so many courses out there. So it's really amazing what's going on. And I think one of the most amazing things is that it's really doable, and there's so much progress that has already been made, especially in the past few years. Small accommodations to make people comfortable, whether that's a kosher kitchen, whether that's seating arrangements, whether that's being sensitive to Yemei Gibush, tiulim, different things that you do that just makes very, very simple changes to make your workplace a little bit more accommodating to all kinds of people, especially the men and women in the Haredi world. So there's amazing talent. At Triple Whale, we're totally just thrilled to be able to bring in people who are so highly talented and share this common ground to really help build a company, and to really, I think that's the shared ground of really working hard to grow something together. So once you have that common shared value, people just work together in such a beautiful way. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, and that's what we're seeing when we're hiring Haredi, whether it's remote from Bnei Brak or in Jerusalem or wherever it may be, is that shared value of being passionate and wanting to build something together. And it's a great thing.
Right, thank you, because that's what I was going to say, right, because Triple Whale is based in Jerusalem, but you hire people remotely from Bnei Brak, so they can still find... Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I think that sitting here is something that, and talking about this topic is something that makes me super proud and super excited. I think that when Moshe came to me 10 years ago, it was, right, or something like that, it all looked like an almost impossible dream, that we'll be able to sit and talk about thousands of Haredim working, men and women working in Israeli high-tech. And I think that if we take a step backward for a second, we need to understand that this is a national goal, both for the high-tech industry and for the Haredi community. I think there's two things here that make it such a win-win, which is that on one hand, for Israel to maintain its advantage in the high-tech world, we are in a huge shortage of talent. Just technically, we're growing so much, the companies are growing so much, we just need more engineers, more people. It's not just engineers, it's salespeople, it's SDRs, it's all these roles. And there's just a huge shortage. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, we have this huge community that is, as mentioned before, is just growing as a percentage of population. And if we want to basically allow them to change their social economical status, one of the best ways is by joining the high-tech industry. And when we started talking about this, there were hardly any. There was one project of women and nothing else at the time. And there were hardly any startups led by, which if you look at the hierarchy, there's low-end outsourced employees doing QA and then doing code and then joining companies and then becoming managers. And then at the end of it, there are people that actually are starting their own companies. And when we started looking at it, there were always no Haredi-led startups. And now I think that the number is, we identified more than 150, right? Something like that, which is a crazy number that we're so proud of. And I think this is one of these unique cases where it's a big win-win for everybody. There's no downside. And as Marcy mentioned, it requires a lot of things. It's not just the training. It requires training the companies to know what it means to have an employee that has different values. How do you respect that? And we've been training companies. We've been putting people in companies so that they will get the experience from the existing large tech companies. We've been investing in startup companies that come from the community. And I think that this is just, it's a huge achievement, but it's just the beginning of the way. There's such a longer journey to be had here because it's still a tiny percentage of the Haredi population. And we want the Haredi population to be represented at least as if they're part of the Israeli, community. And we think that we can get there and even more with time.
If I can add one number, when I first met Gigi and spoke with him about it a few years ago, the numbers were less than 1% of the employees in the Israeli high-tech were Haredim. Today, we are almost in 4% workers in the Israeli high-tech are Haredim, which is a rapid growth. We need to get to 12%, but we did a long way. In terms of startups, when we started, there was 0 Haredi startups in the country. Today, according to the Israel Innovation Authority, almost 9% of the new startups every year in Israel are Haredim, which is unbelievable. So we see really a rapid growth. We see a lot of Haredim trying to get into the high-tech industry. I have numbers that almost 10% of the students in all the institutions in Israel, in the universities, colleges, training programs, almost 10% of the students are Haredim. So we see really a huge movement of Haredim toward high-tech. But like Gigi said, we need first to convince the big companies to accommodate and to find a way to bring those Haredim, find a way for investors to invest in startups. But we're definitely in the good way. And I must say one more thing. It's not about religion, because today in every company we want the employees to feel comfortable. A lot of reasons that employee cannot be comfortable. It's not related to religion. One example, I visited a big company and I saw that a few employees come with their dogs. But they told me that other employees, they don't like to work near dogs. So they have one area for employees with the dogs, for the employees without the dogs. So we try to find all the ways to make it comfortable for the employees to come and express themselves. So also for religious people, whatever makes them feel comfortable, it's acceptable today. It's not about religion. It's about creating the comfort zone for people to express themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And I think there is an understanding today, and the high-tech industry is really open to that.
Yeah, I think one of the big changes is that when we started working on this, the concept was that if somebody wants to work in high-tech, they need to be like the high-tech people. They need to basically let go of what they come with from home, and they need to be like others. And I think the big change that we're seeing, which is critical for the success of this ongoing change, is that the companies need to understand that to benefit from this talent, they need to adjust themselves rather than ask people to adjust. And this is a change that we're seeing over the last few years, which I think is super meaningful because that is the infrastructure for allowing for further growth.
Okay, thank you. We've all said wonderfully positive things about all of the things that are happening here. I do want to press a bit harder, and I do want to touch on some of the maybe perceived stereotypes that are coming out of Bnei Brak and the Haredi community. And I don't want to be treading on eggshells when I say this, but there are some perceived stereotypes where members of the community maybe don't want to be as involved as other sectors, and that investments that are being made here, some are fruitful, but some are in vain. Does anyone have anything to say about some of those challenges that may be coming across? I mean, if these perceived stereotypes exist,
sure, I can say for sure. I think that it's important to realize that, I'm American, that the values necessarily that's promoted in what we call the pop culture are not values that that are revered in the Haredi community, to say the least, right? For example, just, excuse me, personally, my daughter, she's almost 12 years old. She doesn't know any foul language. She doesn't know any curse words. She's never, she doesn't have an iPhone. She doesn't have things. So there's certain values, those are just small examples, certain values that the Haredi community, really, amongst them, Torah study, the value of, learning Torah study, the value of studying values and promoting our values, right? So I would say the Haredi community is very conservative, right? That's the right word, very conservative, very not prone to change. And I think we have a fellow from Toldos Aaron. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Toldos Aaron. They're the guys who wear stripes. That you see them on the news. They wear stripes, and he's a techie, hardcore Haredi, right? They wear stripes. Maybe you'll see them, throwing rocks or something. Maybe not. That's one of the prejudice, right? Even I have prejudice. That's
why we're here today.
And he told me that his grandmother said to him, the world is like a train. It's always moving forward. You just have to make sure you're on the last cart, right? You're in the last one, so that when the world's moving forward, you got to move forward with it. But you just wait till everyone else goes first, right? So I do think that there's a certain change going on in the Haredi community, but the Haredi community, and I think with good reason. I live in the Haredi community. In many circumstances, is very conservative about that change. We want to make sure values are remaining in place. That our values, that the things that we deem important, are going to be guarded. And, with that, I think that slowly, obviously some people, the first people will go, maybe people who don't care so much about the values are a little bit less conservative. The second people go maybe a little bit more. But you do see that even more and more mainstream and Haredi men are, willing to take steps that could, quote unquote, endanger their values.
I'm happy to speak about some of the challenges. I think that, we need to acknowledge the challenges, otherwise we wouldn't be able to move forward. And so, to start with, clearly there is a challenge of the education before young kids get into the programs like CTech, right? So the fact that there's not enough math studies and no English studies are a huge inhibitor to our ability to continue growing. And this is something that, if this could be handled, would have been very material. That's one thing. I think that it is important to understand that getting a Haredi employee, men or women, into a company is not a simple thing, meaning that it does require the company to make various changes. I think that in the big picture, it is very much worth making these changes, but it's definitely something that companies need to be aware of, and we're trying to help them understand and make it simpler, but it's not trivial, right? It's not trivial like anything in life. I think that it is important to understand that not everybody in the Haredi community is supportive of the efforts that are done here. Not everybody thinks that this is the right thing, and there's some people are more into progress and some people are less. I've personally been yelled at together with Moshe at least once by people that didn't think that what we're doing is the right thing. And so this is clearly something that culturally will need to change more over time. But then on the last thing, which is investments, I think that from my experience of investing in a few Haredi-led startups, I can say that they're as good as, at least, as non-Haredi startups. So, when you said that there's potentially criticism that Haredi startups are not necessarily good investments, what we see is the other way around. As hardworking, as committed, as wanting to succeed as non-Haredi startups with some very amazing success stories. So really on that, I think that, when it comes, the thing about the high tech is that it's a very much, it's merit-based. People will not take an employee if the employee is not good for them because everybody's running and busy. People will not decide to let Haredi employees be in the company if the cost benefit eventually is not positive, and investors will not invest in startups if they don't think they're going to make money. And on all of these things, the most beautiful thing about what the work's being done here is that it has never been about, well, we beg you to put somebody in because it's important for the society. It's always, we bring you good people. They're going to be great employees. You need to adjust a little bit, but it's going to be in your benefit. And that's what made it so successful. We've never, ever said, take it because it's important for society. We've always said, you need engineers, you need salespeople, you're going to get amazing ones.
Right, because, you can study the Torah all day long and it might give you good morals for Startup Nation and the tech companies that are moving fast and breaking things. But if people are going to be so adamant about remaining on the last carriage of the train, there's a natural tension there. And if these populations are growing from 12 to 15% up to 27% in let's say 15 years when those folks enter the workforce. What's the future looking like? I mean, where's this tension? Is it going to snap? What's going to happen?
I must say something. 5 years ago, before Pesach, like today, Gigi Levy, I met Gigi in a event, and he told me you should start a VC to invest in Haredi startups. And Gigi was the first investor, and then 60 investors joined, all the leading figures in the Israeli high-tech. And we closed our first fund. We invested in 17 companies. Now we're closing our second fund. And I must tell you that Gigi just told me a few months ago that when we started, he thought it's kind of a charity. Okay, let's start. Let's give Haredi entrepreneurs a little bit of seed money to start. But eventually, the performance of the fund was amazing, even beyond our dreams. It became a really financial fund that makes huge returns. And we see today it's not a charity, it's a huge opportunity because there's so much talent, so much passion, so much people with a drive to become successful. So it's not charity, it's really beneficial for both sides. And this fund, it's a great success story. And in the other end, I must say something about the rabbis. We started in CTech a few years ago a program to train Haredi women and bring them into the best IT companies, not to become outsourced employees and doing QA, but to become employees in the best companies like Google, Microsoft, Cisco, Apple, etc. And when we started, we thought that the rabbis would be against us. And we spoke with all the rabbis, and I must say that the big rabbis supporting us and helping us. Haredi means to be afraid. They're afraid of change. They don't want to be changed. But they're very practical. And if they find a solution to bring those, kids, men, women, into high-tech with not changing their lifestyle, with not changing their set of values, the rabbis are supportive. And today in our program, we have 2,000 Haredi women every year studying computer science with support of all the big rabbis. It means that also the Haredi leadership are supportive of these efforts. And Baruch Hashem, we see the success, and it's a big win-win for all sides.
I wanted to add something that Gigi touched on before. You used the word trivial in terms of it's not trivial necessarily for all companies to start bringing in Haredim onto the staff. But I think that the biggest word here is fear, is to get beyond that fear of hiring somebody different. And on both sides, like you mentioned, the challenges and slashing that bias, whether it's a bias from a Haredi who may think, oh, that person is bad because he or she is dressed that way or looks that way. It goes both ways. And so when you start to really slash that bias and get back to those ABCs of life, not judging a book by its cover and really being able to see past that and see towards the talent and how to accommodate that person into your company, really great things happen. And I've seen it in action where, there have been Haredim and Chilonim who have never met each other before, don't know any Chilonim, don't know any Haredim, work together. And really, it's an amazing thing to see it in action. And so I think also when we're here sort of like after the post-corona, hopefully, where a lot of companies are a little bit more flexible with work, it's a really prime opportunity to take that leap and start training the leadership and really getting involved and understanding how to bring in Haredim to the workplace. It's the best time. You mentioned before where maybe somebody could start at noon. The man goes to learn in the yeshiva in the morning, starts at noon, works a little bit later, or if it's a mom wanting to leave at 3-4 o'clock so she could get home. This is the time. It's the best time to be able to really bring people in and get them going, train the leadership, train the staff, train the company, and make it work. It's really, it isn't trivial, but it's super doable. And this is like the best time right now.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, we do have to, I know we're all super eager, we're all super keen. We have 1 minute each left before we wrap up. I want to hear from each of you now. It's been 20 or 30 years. There's been government effort, private effort, NGO effort into this community. Has it been worth it, and has it been everything that it could be? Has the potential been matched? And I want to hear from each of you, and I suppose we can work our way down and say some final remarks.
What I say is that mainly it's a private effort, but by philanthropists, investors, private companies, people that working and to help this movement. I think it's the best investment for the government to do it because the ROI is unbelievable. I showed the Minister of Economy a few weeks ago, she visited here, Orna Babivai, and I showed her that when you invest in the training of Haredi, in the same year, he's getting a job, he's starting to pay taxes, and the government gets the money back in the same year. And during his career, they get the money back 100 times. So it's the best investment for the government. And I think the government, they are doing wonderful job, but they can do much, much more. And every shekel that they will invest, they will get this shekel 100 times. So my advice for the government, do more and you will get more. Be'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you.
I think, just to repeat your question, in the past 20, 30 years, I just want to understand that they've invested. I think that like I said, I think that there's definitely conflicting values to a certain extent between the Haredi community and necessarily what the government wants. Just one example was, like, let's say now today you have a lot of Haredi ladies who support their families. They're programmers, they make money, and the men are studying Torah. And I'm not no passing judgment, just that's the reality. Whether it's good or not good, it's not, it doesn't matter. But just the point is, I once had a conversation with someone who works in the Ministry of Strategic, development for the economy, and she was like, she wants both parents to work, right? Both parents to work. So the government obviously wants to increase the economy and increase the GDP, and that's their goal. And the Haredi community's goal is a little bit different. That's not the Haredi community's goal. But like I said, I do think that there's been a lot of success, certainly the past 23 years, that people have been able to integrate into the high-tech Israeli, like Gigi said, is the crown for sure. I'm very proud of high tech in Israel, and I think it's a great thing. But I think that we have to really try to work with the community and see where the community wants, how the community wants to develop together with the government.
Definitely the last 20 to 30 years has been a lot of progress, a lot of government programs, that's for sure. Obviously, there could always be more of every kind of government program. But I think especially within the past 5 to 10 years, we've seen the major growth, as we all know. And one of the important things to understand is that in the Haredi community, I think there's a lot of word of mouth that goes around, talk between different people. And one of the most important things is that creating this positive work environment in the different companies, because that's going to spread, and that's going to make more Haredim also feel comfortable to want to work in different companies, whether they're startups or large corporations. And that's an important part when corporations are employing people, to make it a really positive experience, because when it works really, really well. And again, that's the whole thing, is creating that image, making it comfortable for the employees, making it comfortable for all people. And it's a win-win. And we see a lot of the benefits from programs like CTech, from programs like all the post-high school programs that you have for the women especially. We see it in work, we see it in action, and I think the more power behind those programs, the better, because it's definitely helping in getting people educated and getting people ready for employment, excited about tech in Israel, and it's a win-win when that word could spread throughout the community and get people more on board and comfortable.
Yeah, I think that we're in a much better place than we've been before, but it's only the beginning. For me, I understand that for the government to work much deeper in this is a very politically touchy topic, because it's all about education and studying math and English early on, which not everybody in the Haredi community is in favor. So this is why this has been led by the private sector on this win-win basis, and by NGOs that basically been pushing on this. I think we're now at the point where if we want to extend that, the government, who's actually dealing with it, but the government needs to jump in a lot more. But I think that a lot of it depends on the actual Haredi community and the Haredi community's willingness to embrace it. If we want to get this from, I think that it used to be a novelty. Now we've planted the seeds and it's more than a novelty. But for this to grow, much beyond where it is now, there will need to be an acceptance on the Haredi community side, and the desire from the government to double down on that. Without it, it's going to stay where it is now, which is much better than before, but very far from the real potential.
All right, folks, thank you so much. It's been super insightful and super interesting. Gigi, Marcy, Aaron, Moshe, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.